The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
You are back in the House of Mystery, and of course I'm Al Warren, and sideline Mr. David Baseball Martino.
How you doing, Al?
I'm doing okay. So you retired life from baseball into radio. Has that been a good move for you?
Oh, sure. That's right. I didn't even know there was a baseball player with my name.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you had to come from somewhere. We only take brand names here. We don't take any. Right. This is the big boys here.
They thought I was the baseball player.
Yeah, that's, but don't tell them the truth.
No.
Just, take it as it is. Take it as it is,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to with my mouth taped, and that's still not working.
That's not working.
No. It's causing more problems than I thought. Dog had to give me mouth-to-mouth. So.
Oh, no.
Rough.
Rough. That's rough.
Yeah, rough. See? See, you're catching on. Geez, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of rough stuff, we got some rough stuff today. We're going to be talking about a new book coming. It's called Artificial Intelligencia. And the author is Richard A. Clarke. Thank you for coming on the show, Richard.
Oh, great to be with you guys.
Well, Richard, you're kind of a celebrity, You've been around. You've been kind of in politics a lot. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't call it politics. I'd call it government. But there's a gray area where the two meet.
Yeah, I think of all politics as gray, sometimes black. What?
Well, sometimes red, unfortunately.
Yeah, I tell you. What does it? Does that sort of like you're kind of in that realm somewhat? Does it sort of challenge you to do something different or be outside of that realm?
Well, no, actually the opposite. I find there are complex public policy issues that when you try to explain them to most audiences, they fall asleep. And, I can understand why. I've written 10 books. 5 of them are nonfiction. And they've sold well, but there's a whole group of people who will never pick up a nonfiction book. And so how do you talk to them about interesting new public policy issues? Well, you make it a thriller. You make it exciting. You make it a mystery. And then you can get to a whole different audience. And you can have a good time, and they can have a good time. But along the way, they may get exposed to a little, thought-provoking stuff about technology and where it's taking us.
That's dangerous.
Life is dangerous.
Give out too much information. That might be a little, I don't know. So that means to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, I do a lot of nonfiction books, but not kind of in this sort of either of these sort of ideas. But what I do is more true crime and cults and stuff like that. So I'm not dealing in that. So it's different.
Well, this is certainly crime. Whether or not it's true is a lot of my fiction comes true. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't know if that's good.
No, it's usually not.
I don't think that's a good thing.
No.
But I think what I want to look at here is like when you are doing something. So you say, okay, well, listen, I've got some nonfiction, I've got some of this governmental and sort of this stuff out, and now you're doing a fiction book, and you hope people pick up a few things. So is there like a kind of a subtext in your mind when you put together a story like this, when you put this book out, there's something you want people to get that's underneath the entertainment?
Yeah, so this is the 5th novel, and I find that writing novels is a way of getting people excited. If you write well enough, and I hope I do, you get people into the plot. They're page turning. They want to know what happens next. And along the way, they're talking about an issue. I did a book on drones where the people that the U.S. were hitting with drones, they fought back, and in the end, they got their own drones, and they came to America, and they started targeting the people in America who were targeting them. All right, so that was a thriller. Things were exploding in Las Vegas and whatnot. But it did raise some issues about the ethics and the efficacy of drone warfare.
Right, right. Well, the American government has always had the best in ethics.
Well, when I was there, it did, yeah.
It's been a while, but
it's been a while.
That's my little dig. It's just terrible. But you cover a lot of things in this book. This is kind of like you're getting into stuff like, how you say behind the veil into the world of hackers and intelligence agents and surveillance systems and things like that. So when you do that, is reality a real important
constraint?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. In my day job, I work a lot with hackers, and I also work with people on surveillance systems, and I take all of that into a thriller, into a mystery. But I have to, in my mind, I have to do it in a realistic way. I'm going to be laughed out of the room when I come to work if I do something that's just not true or crazy or silly. So the technology is all pretty real. And in the last couple of pages of the book, there's an author's note. Don't read it until you get there. But the author's note is what in this book, from a technological perspective, is already here and already exists, and what is around the corner. And there's no third category of, he just made this stuff up, and it's never going to happen. It's either it exists or it's about to.
Well, there's also what are people going to do with it when they start getting their hands on it, right? Because
they're going to Google it, right? They're going to stop halfway through and say, "Wait a minute, that can't be true. There's no thing that can do that." And they're going to Google it, and they'll find out, yeah, there is something that can do that.
Yeah. Wait a minute, Bill Gates isn't chipping my my vaccine.
No, well, that's certainly true. He's not.
Wow. Oh, but do you worry about the how people take things in your book when you cover that area?
Oh, look, I've been around long enough to have been accused of all sorts of things. I blew up World Trade Center 7. I killed thousands of Rwandans. I mean, if you go deep down into all these conspiracy theories, there's no life. So I don't worry a lot about conspiracy theory people, and they can have their views. That's fine. When I was in government, if somebody brought me a conspiracy theory, I never dismissed it out of hand. I always said, let's disprove it. And if we couldn't disprove it, well, that was interesting. But we could 99.9% of the time disprove conspiracy theories and do so convincingly and pretty quickly. But the ones that, you couldn't really disprove, well, you kept an open mind about that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. The world's kind of going in an interesting direction. So, you just don't know.
Well, people are weaponizing conspiracy theories for political gain and for international power gain. I think the Russians are having great fun making us fight ourselves by just providing enough false information and conspiracy theories to cause us to fight ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So what's the premise of this book, and who are your main characters?
Well, it's a real break for me. The lead character is not an American. He's a Chinese police detective, and he's not in Beijing or Shanghai. He's in a smaller city by Chinese standards. By American standards, they're all huge. Yeah. But He's in a fascinating multicultural city called Dalian, which at one point was run by the Japanese, at one point was run by the Russians. It's up near the Korean border. It's a port city. And he's he's a mid-grade police detective. The Chinese National Police have sent him off to the University of Toronto to get a master's degree in machine learning, so he can design a better camera surveillance system. And he comes back and he does that. And it's a surveillance system that doesn't just use cameras, it tracks cell phones, it fuses all the information that you can get in real time so that the Chinese police can tap in anybody's name and see exactly where they are at any given moment, and see who is within, 10 feet of them. So that gets interesting. And when people start living in the surveillance state like that, they find ways around it. And he has to find ways around it because his girlfriend, fiance, is a doctor who's kind of politically active. And so he has to protect her. But he's prosecuting criminals and going about his business. Not ambitious, not political. And one day, he gets called in and said, you got to go to Beijing. You got to go to the inner sanctum of the Forbidden City. To meet someone in the office of the president of China. We don't know why. We don't know why they want you. We don't even know why they heard about you. So he's frightened to death, and he goes down there and goes through layers and layers and layers into the heart of the Forbidden City, where the Chinese Communist Party headquarters is. And he meets with a guy. At first he's not too sure who this guy is, but he finally figures it out. And the guy is the chief of staff to the president. So he's the Ron Klain of China. And he says, the president doesn't trust a lot of people. And we picked you because we think you're, basically a simpleton from the country who doesn't have a political agenda. But you know about technology, you know about surveillance systems, you know about hacking, you know about machine learning. We want you to take all of those skills and try to figure out if it's true what the president has heard. Here's a conspiracy theory. The president has heard that in thousands of state-owned enterprises, managers are employing their dead-weight brother-in-laws and cousins and whatnot, giving them feather bedding jobs where they never have to show up, but they get paid. So the president wants to prove that, and he wants to, on one day, arrest thousands of these people for fraud as part of his great national campaign against corruption. And you're in charge. And you are now a special investigator, and you have whatever authority you need. Don't abuse it. And you have an unlimited budget. Don't abuse it. And you've got 6 months. Okay. So he starts trying to figure out if that conspiracy theory is true. And it takes him on a fascinating, not a wild goose chase, but a trip down the rabbit hole into a world of hackers and artificial intelligence. He ends up having to go back to Toronto to get advice from his old professor there. But as he arrives at the professor's house, it blows up when he's a block away, and the professor is killed. And so now, in addition to figuring out all of the stuff about these people involved in corruption, now he's got to figure out who killed his professor, or did someone kill his professor? Maybe it was just the house blew up, but he thinks someone killed him. And is that connected to his mystery? Who killed him? Why did they kill him? And as the search goes on, there are interesting questions like, is there an artificial intelligence program here that has become sentient? Like, with the Google thing a couple of weeks ago, where the Google, in the real world, where the Google data scientist said his artificial intelligence program had become alive. Well, has that happened? And if so, how would we know, and where is it? but somebody clearly has the ability to hack into all sorts of things. And this cop who invented a surveillance system is now being surveilled wherever he goes by someone.
How do you get that character, like this detective? Like, how did you assemble him in your mind, or do you, like, what's your relationship? Because with me being all nonfiction myself, and we talk to a lot of fiction writers, a lot of them say that they hear the voice of their character, or they see them, or they're like their families and kids, and I hear all this stuff. How does that work for you?
It does. It does work. When I create characters in my mind, they then just have a dialogue with each other, and I write it down. And that I have no idea where it comes from sometimes. There are two fascinating characters in this book. They're twins, man and a woman, who young dropouts from college in China, and maybe were engaged in some criminal activity, and our hero saves them from prosecution if they will work for him. So now he has these two brilliant young hackers working for him, but they're also sassy, and they're also funny, and they're constantly giving him a hard time, but they're also brilliant and can hack into anything, and they're monitoring him and trying to save him, and they got his back. And the dialogue between them, also the dialogue between them and the police detective, I hear it. You're absolutely right. I can imagine people like that. I've known people like that, not in China, but in the United States. And I just imagine how they would talk to each other.
Hmm. So do you hear these voices when you drive?
No, I listen to books on tape when I drive.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wasn't sure. And you're not waking up in the middle of the night holding a shovel and dirty shoes or anything.
No, but I will wake up in the middle of the night with a plot idea. And so I've got a little pad of paper by the bed, and if I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning with this clear as a bell notion that where the plot should go next, I'll write it down, and then bang, I can go right back to sleep. I think my subconscious works on the plot line a lot, and says when I'm not aware of it, and the subconscious eventually says, "That's a stupid plot twist. Don't do that. Yeah. Do this."
Yeah. Would you? So, do you think that it's people you meet in your life somewhere, and or a characteristic of someone that you've seen in a coffee shop, or who knows, and it sort of gets kind of into the characters? Is that kind of where you think some of them come from?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with hackers, white hat, gray hat hackers, and certainly a lot of that shows through in the hacker people. But I've also known a lot of FBI agents, and CIA people and whatnot, and so the people in the book who are FBI agents or Justice Department people or CIA people, they're composites of people I've actually worked with.
Well, have any of your characters done anything to surprise you? Have they, gone off the rails and just, taken the plot in a completely different direction than you had planned? Or are you totally in control?
No, I'm not totally in control. Certainly not of what they say. There's one subplot here involving the doctor, the fiance to our police detective, and she does something, relatively surprising, that is brilliant and funny, and she does it with some help from her hacker, the hacker twins, and it could potentially get our hero in a lot of trouble, but it's a fun little subplot.
It's funny when you do something like this. Do you ever get people that in the world, in the intelligence world, coming back at you saying, "Hey, was that character me?"
Oh yeah. Oh yes, definitely. There's a character in my book Breakpoint who former National Security Advisor Susan Rice is convinced is her, and I'm not going to disabuse her of that.
Keep them guessing, That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh, so what do you, at the end of the day, someone picks up a book like one of your books here and takes it home. What is it you hope they get from it?
Well, fun. If they're reading the fiction as opposed to the nonfiction.
Yeah.
If they're reading the fiction, I really want them to laugh at the jokes. First of all, get the jokes would be nice. With my sense of humor, that's not always true. Get the jokes, laugh at the jokes. Get involved with the characters and the plot, and maybe stay up till 2 a.m, because they can't put it down, and then pass it on to a friend. I mean, that's the best possible experience, I think.
Yeah. What do you think people get wrong about this whole the hacking world and the intelligence and all the surveillance and stuff? What do you think in general you can say that the public kind of gets wrong?
Yeah, I think some of the public, has a very negative view of government, and I understand why. And they think that there's some sort of cabal in the government, or in the Chinese government or American government, that is out for, just to do harm for harm's sake. In the case of the Russians, they may be right. But the title Artificial Intelligencia is about such a cabal. Is there an international cabal of leading hackers and data scientists and people who are way off the end in understanding artificial intelligence? What if there were such a cabal and it was international? It wasn't controlled by any government, and such a cabal, maybe thought that all the governments were kind of screwed up and not addressing some of the real issues. And what if such a cabal got together and started solving some of the world's problems mysteriously from behind the scenes? So I guess I'm picking up on the theory that some people have that there are international cabals. There really aren't. But
oh, darn.
Yeah, darn, because if we had the international artificial intelligentsia that I created in the book, I think we might be better off.
Yeah. Well, Alex Jones told me.
There we go.
Now, Alex told me that there is globalists and they're, all this stuff. And we only order pizza from the Comet now. So
yeah, well, the Illuminati pizza parlor is really, it's got the best sausages,
that's all. Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. I'm going to get canceled for this one. But the whole concept's interesting in that. But I guess you have to be very careful on where you kind of put your sense of humor then too in something like this.
No, not really. Not really.
I mean more timing. I mean more the timing. It's got to be at the right.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah, sure. But no, the only thing I have to be careful about, because I have to submit all my books to various government agencies. So that they can be convinced I'm not revealing anything that's classified top secret. I still have to do that. I have to do that for life.
Wow.
When I did that the first time, I said to them, well, what if I write a novel? And they said, no, novels are covered too. I said, really? Everything I write? They said, well, if you write a cookbook, maybe, now, the chances of me writing a cookbook are slim to none. So yeah, I do have to be careful. But, there's a way I've discovered. This is book 10. I've discovered ways around that problem, particularly in fiction. So there are, there are some things that you will find in my books that are, well, I'll give you an example. In the drone book, there's something called the Kill Committee. This is in the book Sting of the Drone. And it meets in the Situation Room in the White House and has representatives from the various national security agencies that sit around with portfolios about who the drones should go kill. And a lot of people have said, well, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. That's really conspiracy stuff. Well, I actually interviewed 3 members of the Kill Committee in order to write that chapter of the book. So you can never tell what's fiction and what's not in the novels.
You're not helping me. my nerves are, on the edge now with all this stuff. Okay, so now someone that's never heard of you, which is probably not likely, especially because the Illuminati is hiring you. But what one book would you suggest that people read to get what kind of writer you are?
Yeah, so if they want to know about my life, or at least a very small slice of it, read Against All Enemies, which was the #1 nationwide bestseller. It's the story of the road to 9/11, and it's the story of the day of 9/11. And that reveals a lot about who I am as a person. I think probably the most revealing book about me in terms of a novel is probably this one, Artificial Intelligencia. They say you get better writing fiction the more you write. And I'm really happy with this one. People who have read all of my fiction have told me this is the best one. And there's a lot of me in it because, behind the government bureaucrat, there's a little mischievous brat who would love to have done some of this stuff that's in the book.
Yeah. I guess that's kind of, I think even with government, people think one way, and there's always these are just real people. Like the government's all made up of just real people, just like the hackers, and they live and they make mistakes and they say things and they do things like everyone else. And I think that's, for some reason, it's always portrayed in the movies that, the government agents and people are always like superstars,
Yeah. When I was in high school, we had a very domineering high school principal that everybody respected, but everybody feared. And one day he called me up to the office, which, could mean death, right? And alone with him in the office, I realized he's just a guy. He's not quite the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, but he's just a guy. And that was a real moment for me. And because ever since whether I've been dealing with presidents or senators or secretaries of state or whatever, I realized going into the room, they're just a woman, they're just a man. There's nothing that different about them. They just found themselves or clawed their way to this particular place,
And with modern day stuff going on, do you still have a lot of faith in the securities of the country?
Oh, I've never had faith in the security systems of the country. I think CIA and FBI and both have histories of screwing up that are quite remarkable from their inception and all the way through, consistently. Yeah,
but do you apply that to just in general human error, as in rather than let's say something maybe a little more sinister?
Well, it's not sinister, it's just incompetence. And, government agencies are very much like people. They develop personalities, and they don't change. And they attract people of a certain kind that, like their personality. And so there are government agencies that are atrocious, like CIA and FBI have a terrible track record. There are then government agencies like the Coast Guard that are just, tremendous organizations. Filled with great people who sacrifice for the common good and generally don't screw up. So I think when you think about U.S. government agencies, I think you need to understand their personality.
So what's next for Richard?
Well, it does feel odd not writing a book So I'm maybe a third of the way through the next one, and I don't know, how far I'll take it. But right now, it involves a Washington Post style reporter who wakes up one day and finds a treasure trove of very highly classified information on his doorstep about ultra secret weapons programs that are way beyond top secret, that nobody is cleared to know about except a handful of people in the Pentagon. And, what does he do with that? And is there has anyone abused the privilege of keeping such things secret? Are they secret to keep them away from the enemy? Or are they secret to keep them away from the Congress and the taxpayers? And what's really going on there? So far, I like the book. We'll see if I continue to like it. Maybe we'll pop it out in a couple of years.
Does that make a difference to you? Because if you put together a book, spend all this time and research and effort and all this stuff, if you're not happy,
I'm not happy with it. I stop it. I've stopped, 2 or 3. There's one that I really wish I hadn't stopped, that I was writing in the early 2000s, called Return of the Bear, and it was about a Putin-like character. And his revanchist ideas about making Russia great again. Most of what I had in the plot has since happened. So I really wish, if I had turned this out in 2007, I would have looked like a genius. But it required too much research, so I stopped. And I really regret that. It had a beautiful opening. Beautiful first chapter. It's still around somewhere.
Well, you can do it now,
Well, no, but now it's like, he's talking about history rather than he's talking about the future.
Yeah, it's too late. Well, I think that if anything, I think the last 5 years, you have to kind of look at it and go, wow, people are strange. The way there's a lot of behaviors, and that in itself. I don't know if that makes it easier or harder to write fiction, because
it's truth is stranger than fiction, right? That's the old saying. Well, I find it incredibly true. There are so many things that I find in my news feed that are just absolutely remarkable stuff, and a lot of it doesn't even get any attention. The other day, a steel plant. Big steel plant in Iran blew up. And it's pretty clear that it blew up because it was hacked by an Israeli group, probably a group called 8200. That's stuff right out of a good Dick Clarke novel. And it happened. And it didn't even get coverage.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, the whole thing is strange, But it's that cabal, right? So
it's the Illuminati.
Yeah, they're telling us what we are. Well, no, I just think that the way people behave, like this last few years, it must be really weird in the sense of when you're writing fiction. If you would have wrote a story, like let's say this last presidential thing,
no one would believe it. No one believe it.
Yeah, and then the anti-mask and all this stuff, right? That was going on. You'd be going. And someone just to read it, they'd go, yeah, but that's, it's crazy.
I couldn't get that. If I had written a book about Trump, in the early 2000s, I could never get an editor to publish it because it would be too crazy.
Yeah. They'd go, this is a fantasy,
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, it's a fantasy that if you look around at little, movies and books, you can probably piece it together from that. It's not like it was entirely original, but it's happened. That's the original part.
Yeah, I just, like I say, without a name, there was another person that does this for business that was saying to me that, thinking that Putin was a hero for what he was doing.
Oh, God.
And I would never think I would hear that coming from an American.
I smelled a rat with Putin very, very early on. And I'm very sorry I didn't make more of that judgment.
Yeah.
But there's an example right now on BBC. You can also see it on PBS. A series called Cobra, which is about the British Prime Minister. Cobra is actually the name of their Situation Room. It's Cabinet Office Room B, I think. Cobra, and it's in season 2, and in this season it's about cyber war, and it's about how the Russians are manipulating public opinion in the UK, not to be pro-Russian, but to just distrust government, distrust authority, and be highly anxious and worried about everything, to totally distract people. And then when all the Brits are at each other's throats, then they hit them with cyber attacks on critical infrastructure. It's a really interesting TV series. It's 6 parts on PBS, Cobra. It's a lot like what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because the question it raises is this stuff a conspiracy theory sponsored by the Russians? Is it sponsored by the Brits themselves? Is any of it real? And then it starts affecting real life in a very destructive way.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Do you think that the intelligence would ever have seen this coming? This kind of? No. Yeah.
The intelligence community is really not good at looking around the corner. There are individuals in it that do, but the organizations are very, very staid, very stuck in the past.
Wow. Well, that's really depressing.
Working with the U.S. government can frequently be depressing.
Yeah, but every time I see like Queen Latifah running around with heels on and kicking people, and I see all these people acting as agents on shows, they all look perfect. They do everything great, and never get hurt. And I thought that was the real thing.
You know who the real thing is. If you go back to the great mystery spy writer Jean le Carré, his hero, George Smiley, who is this dumpy, in a gray kind of guy that would blend into the woodwork. He's the man on the Tottenham bus. He is the real kind of deal in spy world.
Yeah, I kind of got that feeling. I don't know. Somewhere a while ago, I started thinking that way. That they're just humans, and
well, there are good people at it, but they tend to be very cerebral rather than very muscular or attractive.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting disappointed. I don't know what's going on. I can't win. Anyway, well, it's fascinating. It's fascinating talking about that sort of stuff, and I'm sure they've probably listened to every word we've said now.
Oh, well, they don't have to. They have an artificial intelligence program that does and flags interesting things for them. So that's actually true. But
yeah. So you said that word Trump. That was it.
Flag. Yeah. So, exactly.
That's it.
That is a use of artificial intelligence that the CIA and other people use, which is they don't have to listen to these long conversations. They have the AI listen to it and summarize it, or flag it if it gets interesting. If I say, well, let's talk about our bombing plot. Okay, bing. Now that gets filed.
Now we're on a list.
Now we are. Now we are.
I can't fly anywhere. And there'd be like, Mr. Warren, can you step aside, please?
Yeah.
I can see it now.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Well, if it does,
you can blame me.
You. Yeah.
You can call me, but it won't do you any good anymore.
No.
There was a time when I could have helped you, but not now.
Yeah. Not anymore. It's all done. It's all in the past. Well,
Right.
I thought you were part of the Illuminati now, so.
Yeah, but I'm making the pizzas.
Oh. Jeez, I'm getting hungry. Let's order a couple. Oh, it's terrible. I'm going to get complaints about that. So.
I'm sure. Yeah. I hope so.
Well, thanks. I won't see them. I never read them. Well, interesting conversation. Great book. Something that I think everyone should buy, and it's called Artificial Intelligencia, and the author has been our guest, Richard A. Clarke. So thank you for coming on the show.
Great to be with you guys.
Thanks, Richard.
Tired of wasting time trying to decide what to watch on your streaming service? Go to our website and look for the Martino movie reviews.
You've been listening to the House of Mystery radio show. To find out more about our guests, hosts, or shows, go to www.houseofmystery.com.
Show's over for now.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Good night.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.
I'll be back.